The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Monday, the 10th day of May, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, and Lindo's. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Carla Zool. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you're watching online, share that link. If you're on Facebook, start the watch party. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. If you're watching on Channel 82 or listening on the Full 100 radio station, call someone up and let them know that we're on. Just get the conversation out there to your network, and don't forget to like and engage with us. A good one to begin the week as Assistant Commissioner of Police Antoine Daniels stops by. We're trying to break that silence, folks. The Daily Play is a Who Said It. So Carla is guessing the author of a famous quote, and I'm not even going to do it this week. It's a new week. New week, folks. It's a new week. I'm not going to do it. I know what you're saying. Oh, this should be interesting. And you're calling the names probably because last week, the most memorable thing about last week, I mean, it was our anniversary. You would think that would be it. But Carla got the answer right and really talked her way. You know how the teacher gives you an A and then you talk your way out of it. But Professor, you just said I had to show the working and I didn't show the working. Like, that's pretty much what it was, you know. I mean, you did, you know. Well, anyway.
Oops.
Hope everybody had a good weekend, but it is a new week. Looking forward to today's conversation with Assistant Commissioner of Police Antoine Daniels as we, you know, there was another murder last month, and it seems like people have forgotten already. Like, it's, you know, okay. We were angry for a minute, and now we go back to our daily life. So we've got to work to break the silence so that we don't continue going around in circles. This shouldn't be a circle of the lives we live and experience. So looking forward to that convo. Folks, if you do normally watch on Channel 82, I did get a notice just now saying that there may be some issues. So hopefully Lamone from Crimson Multimedia is tuned in and he can check that situation out. All right. So, but hey, we are streaming. We are streaming. You can, I haven't said this in a while though, Carla, right? You can watch us on Facebook, which most of you do. You can tune in on YouTube. Please subscribe, smash a like, and hit the notification bell so that you know when we're going live. You can watch on Twitter. You can watch on Twitch. And you can also listen if you're at work and not allowed to really watch anything on the Full 100 radio station. So you have options. You have options. If we're not on Channel 82, I'm pretty sure you actually have the internet. So you have options to still tune into the Daily Hour. But I want to really chat about something different this morning because I know Carla uses this term a lot and it makes me cringe, right? And I heard people using this term naturally. It's just this natural habit. But I hate the term professionalism. I legit, when people say acting professional or be professional, I do not like it. I don't use it with anyone in my company. I think it really reflects a certain culture that was pretty much, as the article I'm going to refer to, able-bodied white men. They should not be the standard for what is considered professional or acting right. Like, I think in 2021, we've got to get it out of our heads that the term professional is okay. It's not. That's a standard that was built for a certain group to succeed. And that's the barometer in terms of how we should act professionally. So that leads to code switching. I actually read this article last week about code switching, and well, about 2 weeks ago, it was on code switching. Well, obviously we had so much going on, we never got around to it. But I really want to just read a summary of it. Basically, it was on LinkedIn, and the article says the cost of code switching. Code switching is shifting languages or language varieties based on the social context and is extremely common among people of color, especially in the workplace. Other examples, altering aspects of your appearance, such as your clothes or hair. In some circumstances, code switching can be harmful to one's mental and physical health. Associate Professor Dr. Courtney McClerney, and I think she's the one who actually wrote the article, says the concept of professionalism is related to code switching, and it has become associated with heterosexual, able-bodied white men without an accent. That right there pisses me off too. They're Americans. Everyone has an accent. Everyone. If you took the whitest of white American men and you put him in the middle of Bermuda or India or the UK, guess what? That person sounds different to the natives, and they have an accent. The language don't even belong to you to act like you don't have an accent. So that right there is a problem in itself with the author of this, even though I agree with most of what she said. But able-bodied white men without an accent. Code switching is another way that we can reinforce racial inequality, gender inequality, and oppression. So again, code switching. Got a question for the audience. Do you code switch? We've had this conversation on the show a long time ago, probably be for some of you. But do you code switch? Audience, what do you think? Go ahead, Carla.
So I actually listened to the blog, the interview that was attached to the article, right? And I struggle with it. Huh?
You can listen to a blog?
Well, you know what I mean, to a podcast. And I found it interesting because the lady herself who was hosting it was a Black woman, and she, to me, sounded like a white woman, right? Mm-hmm. And she talked about the struggle that she had. Now, remember a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was a Friday because Jackie was on, and you were like, "Oh, I like when you sound like that."
No, I don't like when you sound like that.
You know what I mean? I'm paraphrasing, but basically, you saying that you felt that I could switch to do the news, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, as a trained journalist and being on broadcast, you are taught to enunciate differently. So the way that I speak when I'm in professional mode is different than if we're having a conversation. Is that code switching? So when I read this article, like for me personally in business settings, I am who I am, right? I am not going to, I don't switch like that, but I do know that when I'm in journalism mode and if I have to read the news, I sound different. Is that code switching, or is that the word you hate, professionalism? So I struggled with that article.
Is it really a difference though? I mean, I think anyone who doesn't agree with it will struggle with it. And so in reference to what you're saying, if I receive training and they told me to be a different person, then I would probably think that's the worst training I've ever had. If you're
but I don't think it's being a different person, Jamal. I really don't.
No, but it actually is, Carla, because what you're doing is you're performing. So I don't know if you've ever done acting, right? When you're acting, you're actually performing. You're actually becoming a different person, right?
So think about any broadcaster, right? For example, in Bermuda, we'll use the Bermuda context because we do have to some distinctive accents. You're not going to speak that way on the news as you do when you're having a conversation.
You're making excuses for something that's wrong, though. What you're doing right now is saying because they do it or someone does it, I don't know who, but I tell you this, Tarai Trott speaks the exact same in general conversation as he does reporting the news. We can't make excuses for stuff just because that's the way it's been before.
But Tarai has the same... to me, if I close my eyes, I wouldn't see a black... Love you, Tarai. I wouldn't see a black man. I hear a white man. So he sounds the same all the time. So with your point, are you saying sound the same all the time, even if it sounds like a white man, for example?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if the same way how you're saying, what I'm saying is if he sounds the same, that's what you just said. So why are you so comfortable speaking in a setting like that and then switching who you are to be accepted in that? But that's what we're talking about. And Tarai doesn't sound like a white man to me. If I put Tarai in the same room with Don Burgess, I don't think they sound alike. I don't think they don't. And I think that to me is Tarai sounds blacker than black to me. And if him speaking clear to be understood is sounding white, then I think all is lost. At the end of the day, code switching it's something that should not be accepted in 2021. If you cannot be like, when I go to work, I love the fact that I answer a phone and people say, "Where are you from?" I love the fact that people realize that I sound different. I love the fact that people can identify that this person is who they are. I love the fact.
But our contacts are different, Jamal. And I think you have to, not have to, but I think you need to, I hate using these terms like that, but think a little wider, because the contacts is different. You do sales, or you deal with customer, you do relations, right? Like for me, if I go out here in the UK, when I was a bartender, for example, I never said, "Oh, hello, what can I help you?" or whatever. And they would do the same thing, "Where you from?" Because I'd be like, "Hey, how can I help you?"
It's not different, Carla. It's about
It
being yourself.
is. If I'm, if
Here's a larger
I
issue.
can't read the news and be like, yeah, you know, and then again, on
No,
the red Thanksgiving.
but what you're doing is you're literally making my point, and you don't realize it. What I'm saying,
It's not code switching.
you're saying it is code switching. Whether this is the thing, whether you agree with it or do you like it, it's code switching. Because if you just said that's how you were trained, the idea of training someone, and I'm going to use Glenn Jones, the idea of training someone is that so that can become who they are, not so that they can perform when they're in a certain setting. Tamara Richardson says perhaps the larger issue is they can speak in a certain way sounds right. I mean, I wasn't going to address that, because to me that is a bigger problem. To be understood and to speak clearly is not sounding white, and that's another issue I have in there about the able-bodied white man. Like, that is not the barometer.
But it's different, Jamal. If we were somewhere we're at lunch, right? We was sitting off, we're having lunch, we're talking, we're shooting the breeze. And then whomever comes up, who let's just say John Swan. For those who don't know, former Premier of Bermuda, really big businessman. And then all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, hello, John Swan, how are you?" That's code switching. If that's not the type of vernacular that you and I were having before. But I'm talking about in my industry, there's a difference. It's
You're speaking of your
enunciated.
industry in Bermuda. And what I'm speaking about is the industry overall. At the end of the day, any training that you would receive in a professional setting, right, is going to train you to be yourself. It's authenticity, as we always speak about.
And
it's not about agreeing to disagree. I'm literally just telling you, having worked in this space outside of Bermuda in different facets, like Glenn Jones, and I I'm highly critical of Glenn Jones in many respects, but Glenn Jones speaks the exact same. Glenn Jones probably didn't sound like that when he went to Berkeley. Glenn Jones actually did a lot of training. Glenn Jones is an Emmy Award winning media journalist. Glenn Jones has worked at various news agencies from Florida right up the East Coast to Boston. I'm using him as an example, and I can use Tarai at the same. I disagree with Gary Moreno right here, where he says it actually isn't code switch, and when presenting the news, you have to speak in a manner that's understood. This is my point overall, Gary.
That's what I feel, Gary.
My point overall is that you should not have to speak differently. You should always be speaking to be understood. So you're telling me, like, it's one of those things where I'm going to use Gary because he has a Trini accent, right? So Gary and I are very similar in that respect. It's not about necessarily losing a Bermudian accent to be on this to sound different. It's really, you're dealing with people, and you don't want one thing to happen. You don't want people to continue to say, "Huh? What'd you say?" So you actually have to change the way you speak generally, until Gary gets rude on social media and wants to use all these Trini sayings to you and call you names. You know how he gets, right? But no, that's the overall point right there. I just think that one of the things that I don't do, and this is no disrespect to Bermudians, it's just true. It's true. It's real. I have been privileged to work outside of Bermuda at the highest level in 2 different industries. Privileged. Some say lucky, some say blessed. I say privileged. One of the things that I've learned from those times is everything that is anti-Bermudian in some respect. What do I mean by that? I would not be comfortable believing that what I've been taught in Bermuda is the standard or barometer. That's not saying Bermuda's way below. I'm just saying, if we keep saying, why don't we get opportunities and why can't we grow and be in this and that, we have to realize that maybe the training that I received here isn't the level that can get me in the space I want to be elsewhere. I'm 40 years old this year. And sometimes, as my former bosses have reminded me, you've struck gold with opportunities you've had. Why? Because I realized that in order to grow in certain spaces, I have to actually understand that it's okay to be authentic. It's okay to be myself. And
But enunciating properly does not make you less authentic. And this
Carla,
is
if
where
you're
I
enunciating
disagree.
right now in a conversation and then 2 minutes later is a totally different person.
But who says it is? I just
So,
we will just have we'll have to have this we'll just have to keep having to debate this point, brother.
Okay, well, here it goes. I'm not making excuses for who I am. What I'm going to do is say, good morning, Carla, how are you? Okay, T friend. Like, if I do that every day, or if I speak in a Jamaican accent, like, we can laugh at DJs saying that, oh, why they're speaking in Jamaican accent or Collie Buds. It's no different, player, because you're not being who you are. This is not about me and you, though.
No, I got that. I got that.
Overall, of Black
people, I think
when
in
they go into an office,
fashion,
they should be able to be themselves.
But see, you're talking about an office. I'm talking about in a journalism context.
Talking about, yeah, you.
Well, because no, but the example that day with you and Jackie, you said, "Oh, I like when you talk like that." You said that, so that's why I referred back to it, right? But and flip side, I mean, even in the podcast that attached to the article, the lady said, sometimes you feel like you got to do what you have to do. Her sister criticized her, like just how you are, giving your point. Her sister was like, why do you switch up like that when you get in front of certain people? And she said, well, I felt that I have to survive. So I do hear your point on that. But I was talking about any reference to me. I'm not making it about me, but we're going to use it to me about in my industry. You cannot speak any way that you speak on the streets. Besides the curse words, of course, you can.
Well, that's the overall point. Why would you want to speak the way you speak in the streets? Period is the point. That's the point. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure what's being lost here. My point.
I think that you're just so holding on too tight that you're not seeing nothing else.
No, I'm literally trying to understand what you don't get about my point. That's what I'm doing. Like, I'm legit saying to you, you're pretty much making excuses to basically speak in a certain manner in one way and then be so-called professional in another. What I'm asking you is pretty much, well, why can't you just be who you are? Like, if you say you're trained to be a certain way, why does it have to be different? I don't speak to my wife differently than I speak to my boss. I don't speak to my boss.
But you're not
I speak to the audience.
Your industry is different. So
no, but I just say it here. Like, again, I've worked in broadcasting in the US. This is my voice. This is who I am. I speak fast. I probably shouldn't. I enunciate no differently. Enunciate. See, I said that wrong. But my point is that's the training I received. And I'm happy to have received it from people in spaces that have done very well for themselves. Our training is different, obviously. But
I went to the top journalism school in the States. So maybe because, like you said, the white man's way. Okay.
That the white man's way is maybe accepted. It's not about where you went to school. It's how you've been trained and where you've worked and what you've done. That's it right there.
No, I'm only saying that because you're making this emphasis about you had this training and that training. It comes across like you're saying you're way up her and people that haven't. That's how it comes across.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not apologizing for that. What I'm saying is I've had opportunities many other people haven't. But I can use I used Glenn Jones as an example earlier. Glenn Jones is way up there and other people aren't. That's not making him even feel like he's up there. He is. Like, Glenn Jones isn't who he is because he went to Emerson, which is probably the top journalism school in the United States. He's not who he is because he went there. He's there because of the experience, the professional experience, and becoming an Emmy Award winner. That's who he is. And he talks the exact same. So that's the only example if we're going to use that. The contacts were supposed to be office folks, but we used that. Tommy Richardson, I have a group of friends who all speak in various languages. There's a natural slowing down and enunciation that is necessary for understanding, but overall, my accent doesn't change. I think that's code switching when you basically sound like a whole other person. That's my point. I mean, that's it there. Teresa Stewart says, go down south in Georgia and try to understand some of the heavy southern accents if you've never been. You can go northern Florida, Alabama. It's pretty decent. Sam Cat plays. Glenn Jones has spoken clearly and articulate since high school. Oh no, the Dungeon made a joke about Glenn one time saying, I remember him sounding like that. I mean, it was funny at the time, but he said he don't remember him sounding like that when he was in school. D. Renee Dill says, I do not code switch at all. I am who I am. Being in the States, I can't turn my accent off at all, but I do slow down how I speak so they can understand most times, or wait until I see that they can't understand or slow down. Angeline Butler, authenticity is key. Chocolate Lovely Line says, code switching is the definition of switching tone vernacular within your industry. And we have to get to the news break, folks. It's Melissa Burgess says, I understand Carla's point. It's okay to agree to disagree. Dijon Simmons, I can write on paper the way that I do, but if you can understand my script, how am I being effective? And then Talent Clark says, even in Jamaica, yes, their journalists still have accents, but definitely not on the street level of patois. That's it right there. That's it right there, I think. Dijon, help me out, though. I want to get what you're saying. Cindy Lambert says, enunciation does not change who you are, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't change the entire personality of who you are. But speaking slow, I mean, I get that all the time on this show, slowing down. My godson's mother, I'm going to call her name, and my partner, Keitha, they are probably the two fastest speaking Bermudians. I mean, to the point where I might understand what they said 2 minutes later. That right there is pretty much what I would say speech, not necessarily, I guess, tone or vernacular. That's just speech. I mean, they talk 100 miles per hour. I honestly have to think about what they say. I don't necessarily think that falls within the same, but I get your point about the slowing down and so on. We've had a gentleman on here recently, and Carla brought it to my attention that he kind of slowed his tone down to be understood. He may have had an accent. I just thought it was his natural way of speaking. I'm going to take a news break, come back. Assistant Commissioner of Police, Antoine Daniels, he looks like he's ready backstage to jump on and have a very important conversation about breaking the silence. And yeah, don't go anywhere.
America's longest juvenile lifer recently walked out of prison a free man. Joe Ligon spoke to the BBC World Service about spending nearly 70 years in jail while he waited so long for freedom, and how he intends to spend the rest of his days. He said, I've never been alone, but I am a learner. I prefer to be alone as much as I possibly can. Being in prison, I've been in a single cell for 68 years, from the time of my arrest all the way up to my release. This helps people like me who want to be alone. I was the type of person, once I went into a cell and closed the door, whatever was going on, I didn't see or hear anything. It's perhaps fair to say prison life rather suited him to a degree. It allowed him to keep his head down, his mouth shut, and out of trouble. All lessons, he says, he learned after 68 years behind bars. And yet, as this 83-year-old adjusts to what he has waited so long for, he has very few plans. Rather, he's going to stick to what he says he knows best. I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing my entire life. Give me a job cleaning as a janitor. Mental Health Awareness Weeks run from today, May 10th, to Sunday, May 16th. This year, join the fight for mental health. During this pandemic, millions of us have experienced a mental health problem or seen a loved one struggle. And we've seen that the support we all need sometimes isn't there. For them, for us, and for you. We take this chance to step up the fight for mental health. That means fighting for change, for fairness, for respect, and for life-changing support. Whether you use social media or simply speak with friends, family, or colleagues, mark Mental Health Awareness Week 2021 by telling those around you you've joined the fight for mental health and helped create a movement for change. Turning to weather, the temperature in Bermuda is expected to reach a high of 73 today. Atlanta, Georgia will see a high of 75, and Porto, Portugal, a high of 57. That's your Daily Hour news break.
All right, going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Assistant Commissioner of Police Antoine Daniels in a second.
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dandy Town Field. Number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
Spring has sprung and it's time for the Friends of Hospice Butterfly Blast annual raffle. The butterflies are emerging bigger and better than before this year, and there's over $40,000 worth of prizes to make things more exciting. 3 Caterpillar raffles containing $1,000 gift certificates leading up to the main draw. There are multiple chances to win, so buy early and increase your odds of winning. So spring into action and get yours today. Check our Facebook page, Friends of Hospice Bermuda, for details, or call 232-0859. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
All right, welcome back to the Big Show. Call Azul. I'm Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindos, and our friends over at Channel 82. Now, I did get a message just now. So those who do normally watch on Channel 82, let me just see. They are working on something this morning, so it isn't something did happen, so it's not probably not going to be up on Channel 82. So you can watch online for now while they work out what's going on over at Channel 82. So I did get a message. So thank you. I think someone sent it earlier, and Crimson Multimedia are on top of that. Without further ado, let's bring in our guest for the day, Mr. Antoine Daniels, Assistant Commissioner of Police. Welcome to the show, sir.
Morning, Jamal. Morning, Carla. Happy belated Mother's Day. I hope you had a good one yesterday.
Morning. Thank you. I did. Thanks.
Man, you sucking up so she gets some nice questions to you or something. Come on now.
I know Carla tests me a lot when I'm on this show, so I'm going to be nice up front.
Well, I mean, you know, it
That's
helps.
your mate, not me.
it helps. I'm known to be easy one. But look, first of all, thanks for coming on. We definitely love having sources directly from the Bermuda Police Service on to have these conversations. As I stated earlier before you came on, you know, there was another murder last month, and it seems like all has gone quiet already. But just, I'm not sure if you can share, since let's start with the most recent murder of Mr. Jordan Otterbridge. How is that investigation going at this present moment?
Well, Jamal, thanks again for inviting me onto your show. I just wanted to, before we get strictly into that, I just wanted to speak a little bit around this kind of reluctance of the community to engage with the police around serious crime. Because it appears if we have crimes that are less serious, i.e. not involving firearms, we tend to get lots and lots of information and assistance from the community. However, when we get to the higher end type of criminality, to try to get that same support and assistance, it appears more difficult. And I just wanted to just speak more about that because, as you know, police by themselves cannot obviously detect crime, because police can only investigate the evidence that they find at a crime scene and the like. So they can't actually go into court and say it was this person or that person unless they have evidence. As you know how the criminal justice system works. And as we also know is that the success of any investigation depends largely on the accuracy of witnesses, right? So I absolutely get it that people don't want to come forward for obvious reasons. Having grown up in a tight-knit neighborhood myself when I was young, potentially you can be, as the word they use is snitching on your family members, your close friends, or friends of your family, family members of your close friends, or some of our long-term neighbors who we've known forever. So I absolutely get the difficulty. And then our efforts here in Bermuda are further exacerbated because of our small size. So when you look at our close family links we have, we know lots of people know us. Our reluctance to relocate. So if you give evidence, in a high profile case, can you still live in that neighborhood with the threat of gangs and guns all around Bermuda? The mistrust of the police, which is a really, really big one. So the police have to get out there and properly engage with the community, try to help and support people in resolving their problems, and just allowing people to feel comfortable with the police that we're people too, type of thing. And then you want to, and then this is a big one where sometimes you may get criticism, but it's true. Lots of people, because of history and context, people don't want to criminalize young black men. It's a fact. I mean, if people want to argue against it, it's out there. There have been cases where people have been dared to rights, guilty, and they've been found not guilty because they don't want to throw away a young black man's life. So that's one of the big ones. And that fear and intimidation is very big. A lack of education and awareness around, the police are corrupt and this and the like. That's a big one. And the other one is not wanting to get involved. So people in Bermuda, we say that our Bermudians are, real pokey and all that. Maybe we are pokey, but we're pokey when it deals with domestic and other related stuff. But when it comes to the real serious, hand on heart, trying to make our community safer, sometimes we shy away from that. And then we have this other one that I'm really concerned about, not in my neighborhood mentality, or it doesn't involve me, so I don't care. I'm not getting involved. And what I want to say about that is that as you look around, we've had something like 270 odd shootings since 2009. And out of those 270 shootings, we've had over 100 persons injured, 41 persons murdered. If you think it's not coming to your neighborhood, you're sadly mistaken if you don't get involved. So for me, I really, like I said, I really get it. It's really a complex situation. But all I can say is that if we don't stick together as a community, then the problem exacerbates itself. It gets worse because the shooters become more confident, and then they go to higher and they do more complex crimes they start, and then they may stray away from shooting each other, and reluctant, I hate to say this, they may start firing somewhere else if they feel they're comfortable. So my thing is trying for police to try to really get and engage in the community, be real, embrace diversity, accept that some people are different from us, but we accept everybody for who they are. We don't judge, we stay strictly down the middle, very balanced. And we just need to work together and see if we can and resolve these type of issues, because Bermuda in general is not the type of place where it's associated with violence and people not helping each other. Generally within our communities, we support and help each other. So I hope we can get back to that.
Mr. Daniels just went ahead and pretty much took the flow of where we were going and answered it. He almost reminded me of a rapper just now. Well, I'll give you all the information before you can ask, but I have a lot of follow-ups with all that was said. So I'm grateful for that, because you mentioned, I mean, no, it's no secret that Carla and myself lived in an area where there was a lot of gun violence. And when you say 270 total,
276 to be exact,
276 shootings since 2009 in Bermuda.
Yeah.
Normally, and it's like word fatalities, people only take in the people who've passed away, not the actual incidents that took place.
Yeah.
276 shootings is a lot. So my question regarding that is, there's been 276 since 2009. How many actual murders have there been? And then of those murders, how many have been solved?
Okay, so it's two things there. So when we say the number 276, be careful how you bend that around, because 276 just means that it was a firearms related incident. Somebody may not have been necessarily shot at, but it could have been where we, went to a house, seized a firearm, or we seized ammunition. Someone was shooting, doing target practice and the like. So in terms of the real figure that we have to look at, we've had something like 110 people shot and injured, and a further 41 shot and killed. So those are the figures that are really, really that you have to keep in your mind. And in terms of murders, since May 2009, we've had 66 total murders, with 41 of those being firearms related, 17 of them obviously with a bladed article, which is also quite concerning. And what I note of the 25 or so murders that were not, and as I was making this point at the beginning, that were not firearms related, there is something like 6 or 7 that are outstanding. But however, when you look at the firearms related murders, we have had a solvability rate of around 60%. So just over 30 plus have been resolved, although we have 6 persons currently before the courts pending trial. So those have been resolved. So that's the kind of figures that we're dealing with. And when you look across the wider world at gun-on-gun violence, in the inner cities in America and the like, our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, generally to clear up and resolve those type of crimes is difficult because they happen amongst persons that are almost targeting each other. Although here lately we've had some murders that we strongly believe that were either mistaken identity or the person may have been with someone that they were targeting and were mistakenly shot and injured or shot and killed. So not all murders. I don't want to paint every victim in a bad way, but some of the victims that we have been involved in gang mentality or gang activity themselves.
Indeed. I want to go back to, because we mentioned the amount of problems that lead to not being able to solve some of them, right? One of the challenges is people speaking up, right? We've got to break the whole silence, right? But look, small communities tend to talk more, tend to share more information. Some people call it gossip. Why is it that this doesn't seem, I know you mentioned, people don't want to live in fear in their neighborhoods and stuff like that, but are the police doing anything to combat this, like the incentives? Is there anything that you believe can culturally change this so that we can actually make progress in this instance?
Well, if you know from the Chevelle Dylan Burgess disappearance, there was I think it was something like a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the perpetrator. Something that we thought was quite serious like that, where we had obviously a young woman taken from our community. No one called in to give any information. So the incentive around providing money in that particular case didn't work. So in terms of the incentives that I'm looking for in terms of trying to get people to come forward is more the human quality, is more caring for your brother and sister, is more looking further down the road to say, okay, well, it didn't happen to me this time, but maybe it could happen to a member of my family in the future. It's around looking at, hey, listen, Bermuda's a highly tourist destination. We have international business. Reputations can be ruined. If we have shootings left, right, and center all over the place, then no one's going to want to come to Bermuda. No one's going to want to bring international business to Bermuda. So you got to look at the bigger picture rather than looking inwards and looking at yourself. And I mean, and a lot of that's based on your values. It's what value system do you come from where you can see such heinous crimes happening you're aware of, and you can turn a blind eye. So I don't think in terms of policing, like I said, in order for the police to really get on top of, they have to make people feel more comfortable and have more trust in the police. And the other big thing is that if people are coming forward and giving information, police have to demonstrate that with this information, they can actually solve these cases. Because if people are giving us information and we're not solving these cases, I can give you an example. The other day, I was kind of minding my business and went to get a medical x-ray, and the person that worked in the thing approached me and said, listen, and it was sad because her son was murdered a couple of years ago. And she said, Mr. Daniels, I've been given specific information to the detectives who are investigating this case, but it doesn't appear that I'm getting, any benefit out of this. So if people are, I'm not saying if that's true, but I'm just saying if people feel that they are, delivering on their part, but the police are not doing their part, then the information is not going to continue to come towards, and not going to continue to share information. So it's little things like that. We just have to make sure that we're professional, we're properly engaged, and we're making people feel supported, valued, and that they really trust us.
So my question real quick, in regards to, you talked about the $50,000 incentive. I'm not talking about the case, but for some people, it amazed them that no one came forth for 50, considering what was at stake. What does that say? that you just said no one gave information. You did talk about the moral fiber of some people, but what does that say that $50,000 hung there to no avail?
I mean, I'm hoping that people are not becoming desensitized to a lot of this violence. And like I said, when you speak to lots of people on the streets, or in general conversation, they're talking about Daniels, listen, those crimes are concentrated in particular areas. They're not worried about us. So it's that type of, I guess, slack, non-courage or uncaring talk that kind of diverts people away from the core focus on let's try to make our entire community safe. Because like I said, in a year's time, or in a month's time, or in a week's time, it can arrive in your neighborhood, because Bermuda's not that big here in Bermuda. And we've seen examples of crimes happen in the middle of, in Hamilton, or in the middle of a public place, in the middle of a party. We had a horrendous murder some years ago down at Victor Scott playing field when kids were flying their kites. So these things can happen in any neighborhood, and we just need to recognize that and just come and support each other. I don't have the answers as to how we can get people to come forward, but I just know the general things that the police should be doing. We just need to get better at, so that we can get this information. And one of the things we need to get better at is, even though I think we are quite good at it, is getting some convictions.
Now, one of the challenges that I think the community faces is that some people don't believe that Crime Stoppers is confidential, when in fact it is. So what can the Bermuda Police Service, or what does the Bermuda Police Service plan on doing to get more buy-in from the community that this is in fact a confidential service?
I mean, it's not so much the police services mandate. That will be for Crime Stoppers, but we work close in partnership with Crime Stoppers. And I don't think a lot of people are aware, when you make a call to Crime Stoppers, who actually, by the way, also give rewards for information if it's significant and leads to an arrest or recovery of firearms and the like, that actual call, when you call Crime Stoppers, is not even answered in Bermuda. And when they share that information with the police, we're not aware of the individual that's given that information. So if people don't feel comfortable or confident in speaking with the police, that's definitely an avenue that I suggest. And if you're and you also have other options. I mean, if Bermuda policing is not the only law enforcement agency on the island. If you feel quite comfortable, if you have a member of your family or someone you're close with that works in another area that can, maybe share the information with police, then confide in them and let them come to the police and see if they and give us the information. So if you feel uncomfortable, come to the police. There are other options that are available out there to you.
Now, while it's been a spate of murder since 2009, going back to 2003, Shunday Jones, for example, we had Miss Marsha Jones when we did the first season of the Sons of Paradise series, and she expressed that she's given up hope that her son's murderer will ever be brought before the courts. What is the statuses of that case, or cases like that are long-term cases? Do the police keep them warm as such?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't like to speak about specific cases, but what I would say is that the police, we don't forget anyone. So all cases that we have, we steadily have what we call kind of reviewers who review these cases continuously, specifically when particular information comes in. We're constantly reviewing these cases and trying to get them to the process whereby we can take it to the Director of Public Prosecutions and try to get it to trial. So those cases are never forgotten, never put it away in a box and left, so to speak. So I get it that people may lose confidence, but there have been some cases, for example, the Aaron Easton. I think it was a murder in like 1985. It took us something like 20 years to bring that one to justice, and we was able to get it before the courts, and the prosecution did a fantastic job, and we was able to get a conviction. So these cases are never forgotten, and I would just hope that Ms. Jones just remains confident and has some type of confidence, like I want to say, in the system, that we can try to bring this to justice one day.
Now, this is the roughing up that you was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last few years, the police service tends to do anniversary or milestone anniversaries of a murder victim's death, and appealing for witnesses. And it's been noticed, in my opinion, and a few others, that there doesn't seem to be a focus on many of the young men from St. Monica's. It was a concentration of them. And it seems like you see appeals for other places, other murder victims, more so than you do them. How do you determine what's a priority in those milestone anniversaries, and why does it feel that some people are forgotten?
So in those particular cases, what we refer to as, because every particular investigation would have a lead investigator, right, which we call SAO or investigating officer, and he or she will determine, based on the current status of that case, which one will probably get the most traction, if we were to put it in the media. And that's what we do. We don't just pick and choose and say, well, because this person lives in St. George's or he lives in St. Monica's, they're not important. That's not how it's done. It's done by having a core review of the particular case, seeing a gap where we may be able to get traction, and then putting it out in the media, and hopefully people will remember, and it will appeal to somebody's conscience, and they will come forward and try to provide some information or intelligence where we can take the case forward.
We have a question. Sean Smith asking, are there any laws that need to amend or introduce to aid police in solving the cases?
I mean, legislation itself doesn't really lend itself to solving these cases, but we always look at best practice. For me, like I said, the main focus for us is, because you can't trample on people's rights, right? Because there's a balance between people's liberties, as you see with this COVID. I don't want to really get into it, where people are deemed to be committing illegal acts for things that they generally do before COVID. And we don't want, because we have having a series of shootings, I think we need to go back further than legislation and look at the whole system, take a whole system approach to trying to, at the front end, prevent young men from getting into these type of crimes, in the middle end, trying to catch and convict or suppress, and then at the back end, trying to resettle and rehabilitate persons that have gone through the system. So legislation by itself, I honestly don't believe it's a big assistance to us. And if you look at in recent years, we've increased the penalties and the like, and this doesn't appear to be any major deterrent to a lot of the gang members.
It's a really long one, so I'm not going to put it on screen, but Sonia Clark writes, one of the things that is often highlighted to gun violence in the U.S. is releasing of information to assist with getting information. Is the message clear here in Bermuda when there is no consistent update / information / rallying from police to even send a message that you're actively engaged with solving some of these crimes? What is the cause of doing a bi-weekly community call or update on what is happening from police media relations to promote an active role of engaging and sharing? And probably went on, but that's all that we're showing.
Right. So that's the importance of coming on these type of shows like that, because people then filter us with kind of ideas, strategies whereby we can get out there data and maybe retrieve some information that were lost. But what I would say in terms of information sharing, we have as you know, Gab Moreno, our media relations officer, who we quite often try to get both good news stories out there, both appeals for information. However, I believe that more and often, as the person asked the question, is definitely a benefit, is to get these things out there. Because I know at the beginning of the broadcast where you asked about the unfortunate murder of Mr. Jordan Otterbridge last week, and what's the status, and your words, not mine, you said it appears to have gone quiet, which for me it's quite concerning, because I don't think it's going quiet. But if it appears that it's going quiet on the outside, that means the police have to up their game and just to make sure that we provide Jordan Outerbridge's family with some confidence that we haven't forgotten this case and work on it every day. So that comment that it appears quiet, and then the question that it shows that the police have to up the game and demonstrate to the community that every day we are working hard in difficult circumstances to resolve these quite horrendous murders.
We're out of time, but before you go, just speak to the community and just let them know, what you believe can actually help community and police working together to not only solve some of these crimes, but to prevent them. What's some of the top things that we can do together?
I mean, for me, it's just working in partnership. So I'm in Bermuda, for a small place. Sometimes it can appear quite siloed. So for me, this disjointed approach that the police do this, the courts do this, Child and Family Services do this, as opposed to all of us coming together and taking that whole approach to this problem. So when a young kid is born, right from that day of birth, there are mechanisms in place that it's a whole system approach to 0 to when they're 20. And we have some type of models where if we have to refer them somewhere, if we have to do assessments, if we have to check in with the Department of Education, the Department of Health, Child and Family Services, if the child's at risk, if we can get this whole system approach to sharing skills, resources, and the like, I think that's the biggest thing for me. And then in terms of persons coming forward, I have this common quote that is often used. It talks about bravery is not the absence of fear, but the action in the face of fear. So we may not have the courage at the time to come forward and share our story. But courage, if you look up the definition of courage, it means doing something even when you're afraid to do it. And then the other big one is my big one is right versus right. So we have rights to not say anything. Of course, we have the right. No one can arrest you for not speaking up. However, is it the right thing to do? Is it the right thing in your heart, your values, your conscience? Is it the right thing to do when we're trying to take this whole approach to trying to protect our fellow citizens? So it's incumbent for all of us to stand together and support each other. And if we stood together and support each other, then the small minority of gunmen and gangbangers and the people that just want to create havoc in the community try to come and take on all of us, then it'll be quite difficult because they'll be the minority and then we'll weed them out. So that's the kind of message for me is it takes one person to start it rolling. And once we get that ball rolling, I think others will follow. And we can, like I said, adapt that whole approach, whole community approach, everyone stick together and support each other and try to target these horrible crimes.
We are out of time, so I'm going to need you to. I want to ask you these two questions, but if you can do it in less than 30 seconds, it would be helpful. Nikki Michelle asks, how does policing techniques in solving crimes look different, specifics than it did at the time of the first murder? So going back to 2009 or 2000 day, how has the department evolved to now from then?
So it's actually been a lot of involvement. It's obviously been we actually got specific training. We looked at best practice around the FBI in the US, that new investigative strategies in the UK. We obviously upped our game around forensics. We obviously took a more holistic approach to tackling gangs. So we brought in multiple partnerships. And we also increased our community engagement. So it's a lot of different things that we did. And also, what's very important was our review process and the addition of analysts to actually analyze the data and bring us back, some of the key themes around these shootings and other serious crimes.
All right, last question. Camelia Lowe asked, what is the likelihood of solving murders when no arrest has been made within 3 months?
It's a high likelihood of solving. So many of the murders that have been resolved, we have made arrests after 3 months. So I don't think the timing, sometimes they say the more it gets away from the murder, you lose evidence. Sometimes that doesn't mean that, because you got to remember, Bermuda, there's a small amount of firearms that we think or in circulation. So one firearm is linked to multiple cases. So all it takes is for us to catch, one individual with a firearm, and then sometimes we can link it and solve other cases, as well as people, you have long-term witnesses that come forward. So it's lots of different mechanisms whereby we can solve cases after no arrest has been made up front.
All right. Assistant Commissioner of Police, Antoine Daniels, thanks so much for having this conversation with us. And we look forward to continuing to work with the Bermuda Police Service so that we can do our part in helping the community as it relates to preventing and solving these crimes.
Thanks, Jamal and Carla. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Thanks again to Assistant Commissioner of Police and the entire Bermuda Police Service for trusting this platform. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this.
I have my three children, a 27-year-old and a 11-year-old and a 5-year-old. I have to balance it out. I actually even stopped working Monday to Wednesday just so that I can put in time for the products and I put in time for my family. Because for me, my family comes first over anything. I know I have to run my business so that we can eat and everything, but my children come first. I let them even play a role when I'm making my products. Come on, get up. You can come help me mix it. Come help me put the label on it. So when we talk about inspiring your daughter or your children, I make my children get up there and see what it takes to run a business. Come on, Surrey. This brand, Surrey Shea & Co, is named after you. So you need to help me. You're gonna come, you can do this, put the labels on for me. You can do it. Even my little 4-year-old, I had him do it. Mommy, let me help. So I just let them help, and it teaches them the way.
All right. Thanks again to Assistant Commissioner of Police, Antoine Daniels, for coming on for the conversation. If you enjoyed that conversation, don't forget to smash a like, love, or, just show some love to the Bermuda Police Service for trusting the platform and coming and engaging with you all. You all, look, I don't look at my phone during the show. But if you do send a message, don't send a voice note. Like okay, I'm gonna do it. My daddy last week, we were having some issues where it wasn't going over the radio station, and he decided to send a voice note. Thank you, Father, I appreciate you, but you gotta text me. I can't listen to the voice note over the air. So just using that as an example, it's easy to pick on him. So send text. I don't normally look at my phone during the show, but if I do pick it up, it's easier to read than listen, unless you want everyone over the air to hear what you got to say. With that said, we have a daily play, and I'm going to give you a hint. This person has run for the presidency of the United States. Quote, "We must turn to each other and not on each other."
Barack Obama? Jesse Jackson.
All right. Jeez. Woo! She got it. I said she's gonna get it one time. She's gonna get it one time.
Two times.
No, I'm gonna give you that one time. I'm not gonna ignore the first part. You got that. That was good. That was good. Jesse Jackson, it was, and that's so important. I love that quote by Jesse Jackson. We must turn to each other, not on each other. And part of helping our community as it relates to crime is really turning to each other. It shouldn't have to be in your neighborhood or your family for us to do our part. Any daily inspiration for us, Carla?
Sure do. It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. Lou Holtz.
Lou Holtz, is he an actor or?
I have no idea.
I know that name. Is he a basketball coach? I know the name, Lou Holtz. Anyway,
I'll look it up.
final thoughts on Mr. Daniels, Carla.
I just think it's important for the community to put a stop to this. And the only way to do this is to speak up about what you know. Let's give these families some peace.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question, especially regarding how the police go about sharing what murders to focus on, because Carla makes a great point. And this is not a dig at the Bermuda Police Service, but you do wonder how do they go about it? Why, is it based on information they have about certain cases versus others? But what I will say also is that they have solved or brought people before the courts years later. They have done that. It is a community effort. It's going to take a community effort. So all of us have a role to play. So let's just hope that more convictions lead to less people wanting to commit these crimes. Thanks again to our partners, Medical House One Communications and Linders, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. She's Carla Zul. I'm Jamel Hartman. My friends, make it a great day.